is what I guess you'd call a bonus program. That is, there's nothing to sell or buy, but simply some excellent advice that will pay dividends for all of us. By the way, I'm Robert Ryan, and a group of your fellow citizens, serious, likable people, have arranged for me to say a few words about your long-term future. I'm referring now to the age-old international system of war and what can be done about it, so that you'll be around to enjoy a long-term future. Now, don't smile. I almost know what you're thinking. There's always been war. We can't do anything about it. But before I argue the case, I want you to take a look at what I call my comic snapshots of history. This is Mortimer Q. Zilch, and the year is around 1800. Zilch, in addition to being an authority on taxes, government reform, and other matters, also has considerable knowledge about boats. He has just had a long argument with Robert Fulton, and according to him, Fulton is a dangerous dreamer. No boat will ever run on steam or any such nonsense. This is America, 1875. These men have just been listening to Alexander Graham Bell, and they're laughing because they know you can't talk into a wire and have anything come out the other end. Later, when they calmed down, they agreed that Bell was a dangerous radical and probably belonged in jail. The man on the left is Mortimer Zilch II. This crowd is listening to a speech by Mortimer Q. Zilch IV. This is 1940, and he is explaining that disarmament is a lot of nonsense. The nations of the world will never get together. And anyway, the United States will never be involved in another war. This peaceful spot is where Zilch was buried in 1945. He died of lead poisoning, the .30 caliber kind. Because in spite of his predictions, it seems there was a war. This is the United Nations headquarters. This is a going concern. And if Zilch V lives to a ripe old age, it will be largely due to the continued success of this union of mankind. Now ask yourself, is it either safe or sensible to say that you can't stop wars because it has never been done? Or do you insist upon being a Zilch? No. We simply substitute the force of law for the law of force. War will not vanish in a vacuum. It must be replaced by a more powerful, effective, and just instrument. Now, what does this mean in our terms? The United Nations is the instrument, but it must be improved. It must have the power of law to disarm all nations down to what they need to keep order at home. It must have the right to recruit and maintain its own inspection, police, and armed forces. It must have the authority to decide international disputes in courts of law and to enforce its laws upon individuals as well as nations. But also the UN must have proper safeguards so that there will be no abuse of these new powers. Now, you're probably thinking that's fine, but who would do it and how? Would my fellow citizens agree? And more important, would the nations of the world go along with this? Well, I've learned that when asking people to do something new or difficult, Their first question is, what's in it for me? The answers would even appeal to zilch. We could be secure from war and the fear of war. We could eliminate the draft. Our young people could plan their lives as people rather than as military replacements. Our taxes could be cut 70 or 80%, and we would still have more natural resources to use for schools and housing, hospitals, roads, and consumer goods. By a really strong support of the United Nations, we could keep our role as champions of freedom without the fear of offending important allies. We could not only prosper and secure our lives, but we could ease the dangerous pressure throughout the world. You see, in many parts of the world, standards are so low that there's no way to go but up. These people now know that their misery is not necessary, so they will insist on sharing these benefits with us. But can we really help them and at the same time pour billions into the armament races? The answer is no. But the world's peoples can gain this economic progress and keep their self-respect if worldwide disarming through enforceable world law is achieved. And what is the alternative? Well, it's a continuation of the old runaround. We give a little, the Soviet Union gives a little, and tempers get thinner because nothing has been solved. Until we stop pushing the Kremlin against a closed door, we will never learn whether they would be prepared to go through an open one. You see, these nations and people want to be free in their own right, on their own terms. They can achieve that kind of independence only in an ordered world in which the small and weak are as safe and sovereign as the great and powerful. In this way lies their future and our own security. Consider these problems, and you will see that national disarmament and UN police, with the authority of enforceable law behind them, could solve our basic differences. In many parts of the world today, we have injustice. And today's injustice inevitably becomes tomorrow's struggle. Germany, Korea, Vietnam, and Kashmir are unhappily divided. Eastern European nations are dominated by Soviet might and can only fight with their bare hands against Soviet tanks. 600 million Chinese are beyond our influence because the UN, as it is constructed, would have trouble with their aggressive government. But these problems can be resolved with your help by creating a strengthened United Nations. In the first place, agreed solutions to these problems would stick, because the UN, given the authority of law, would not permit them to be broken. the divided nations could be allowed to unite without fear on either side that these nations could become military allies of the opponent. Even those millions living under predatory rulers could be embraced by a world organization that was capable of controlling the menace of these rulers to others. So, along with what's in it for you, we can say that there's something in it for everyone. For the more we consider the world's vast problems, the more one is convinced that the law of force must be changed to the force of law. This is the key that unlocks the doors to peace, prosperity, freedom, and justice for all. For if these doors remain locked, man is doomed to expire in an airless room. But if these doors are unlocked, the whole genius of man can burst forth into the open. The key is just and enforceable world law. And the key will be forged and cut, however stubborn the metal may be to mine, to manufacture, and to shape.
There can be no effective military defense against modern weapons. Therefore, no national security without world peace. No world peace without international justice. No international justice without world law. And no acceptable, effective world law without institutions to make, interpret, and enforce it. For peace is more than the absence of war. Peace is even more than the achievement of disarmament. Peace is the presence of justice, of law, of order, in short, of government.
This program, part of a series, The 8 Steps to Peace, is being brought to you as an educational public service by the Pierce Butler Jr. Foundation for Education in World